Hello, I'm Dr. Randall Bell. This is my good friend Suzanne Wilcox, and we're here to talk about some really important stuff on healthy healing. You ready to get right into it?
I'm so excited.
Let's do it. Okay, now I'll just mention Suzanne and her husband John are like some of my very favorite people in the world. Don't tell my family, but this family and Suzanne have it kind of figured out. They're doing it, not just success in how we might think of success, but very well balanced success. So we're going to a good source. So we're going to talk about healthy boundaries. You kind of helped us put this graphic together. You just tell us what it all means.
What I think is the most important thing about this is that we can claim power over who comes into our space.
Okay.
So boundaries means like if I have a fence around my yard, it means keep out. Same thing goes in my energy field. If I have my space and someone walks up to me and they come without my permission, I get to say keep out. I have certain rights and privileges that other people don't have in my space, and I choose who comes in my space and who doesn't.
I get it. So it's kind of like you get to choose who comes into your life, into your every day-to-day, not just anybody who wanders along. Do I have that right?
Yeah, and it's so important that we claim that power, because when we claim that power of deciding who comes in our space and we create a boundary, it can make our lives so much better.
Okay. Well, why don't we start with the negative stuff, and then we'll go to the positive stuff. Does that sound okay?
Yep.
Okay, so the first thing I see are bullies. Why don't you talk about bullies for a minute?
A bully can only have power over me if I give him or her power.
Okay.
But it's tricky because bullies really thrive off of taking other people's power. But it's my power, and I have my power. And so, bullies, I think we just have to really stand centered and say, this is my space, and I'm not going to give anyone control over my emotions or my actions, no matter how big and strong they look.
One thing I've noticed about bullies over the years is that bullies are really cowards, number one. And number two, bullies have their own very deep insecurities. That's why they're bullies. So it's not like they have really all this power that they're putting on an act for. They have their own junk that they're dealing with. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I would say for sure bullies are just acting out their own woundedness and their own problems in a different way, but
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, great. So we go to society's negative pressures. Give us an example of what that might look like.
So let's say society is giving me a lot of pressure to live up to some kind of a standard of success.
Okay.
And let's say standard has defined success. And now I'm on that track to success. But let's say it doesn't feel good to me. And let's say it's not compatible with my own path or what I need to be happy.
Okay.
Then I have permission to say, I'm not doing that. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to define what I think is success, and I'm going to live by that.
Okay, so you kind of make your own definitions rather than letting society tell you how to live your life.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of effort and discipline to do that, because we're programmed from before we're born to think in a group brain. So
Okay.
It's not easy. I'm not saying that's easy, but I'm saying when we're aware of it, then we can make conscious choices to say, I have permission to do what I want to do the way I want to do it, even if everybody around me is telling me that's a bad idea.
Totally cool. Get it. So complainers, there's no shortage of complainers. I've noticed that. What do you have to say about complainers?
We get to choose, same as everything, we get to choose. We get to choose not to connect, not to listen, not to buy into those ideas. We get to say, it's like a radio station, I'm changing the channel. And when that channel comes into me, I get to sort of say, I can change the conversation. I can all of a sudden realize I have something else I need to do. I get to just make a different choice.
Okay, and I'm noticing kind of a theme that, with the bullies and society's negative pressures, we're kind of setting our boundaries and they're kind of bouncing off. You've spent years in formal training on this stuff, but do I have that right? Am I untrained?
Yeah, so what I like about this worksheet is the green side are arrows coming into my space and the red arrows are being deflected.
Okay.
So we get to choose what comes into our space and what doesn't. So let's say I've made a choice that I have a gatekeeper around my space, and that gatekeeper chooses, it's like a bouncer at a club or at an event. If you have a ticket to get in, you get in. If you don't have a ticket, you don't get in. If I decide complainers, negative social pressures, or society's negative pressures and bullies don't have a ticket to get into my space, then I have this gatekeeper that says, you're not welcome here, you can't come in. And that's why these are deflecting, and that's why these are coming in.
Okay, so then we go to negative friends and relatives. I like to think most of my friends are pretty positive. My family's pretty positive, but let's say we have some negative people in that mix. How do we deal with that?
Well, no matter how positive my friends and family are, it's going to happen that they're going to tell me something that isn't what I want to hear, or it's not serving my highest good, or it's not really in alignment with what I know I need to do. Because we all have to do what we have to do, and if my friends are not supporting me or my relatives are not supporting me, I have the freedom and the choice to say I got to do what I got to do.
Yeah.
I mean, this is all about I got my power. You can't take it away from me.
Right. It's funny because when I was a little kid, I had a conversation with my oldest brother. And he basically said, hey, there's no way on planet Earth you're going to ever think of anything new or invent anything new or come up with any new ideas because everything's already been thought of. And that idea stuck in my head for years where I just thought, why try and be creative? Everything's already been thought up. And that, he's a I love my brother. But he made a comment, it's probably a throwaway comment he forgot ever even making, but as a kind of a younger brother, I kind of took that in, whereas had I had kind of this kind of buffer to say, I don't buy that and I can reject, that kind of thing, that probably would have been a good idea at that time. Does that apply?
I really like that illustration. And what's coming to mind when you're telling me that story is something that I'm aware of because I have 5 siblings and I was the youngest and I got some messaging when I was young from my siblings. And then when I grew up, they still saw me as the little sister. So I bumped into some ideas about, wait a minute, I've changed. I'm not the same person who I used to be. And those family dynamics sometimes don't change. So we do bump up against stuff with our families about how we're perceived or what the expectations are, and then it's up to us to say, this is who I am, this is what I want, it's my responsibility to do what's right for me, even if my siblings aren't on board or my family's thinking I'm crazy. We gotta do what we gotta do.
Okay. Well, I know you well enough your family's crazy if there's a disagreement. Anyway, so gossipers, there's lots of gossipers. What tell us about that one?
Gossip is the lowest form of conversation, in my opinion. It's not high-level conversation. And there are so many enriching, beautiful things we can be talking about when we're with our friends, that if we find ourselves talking about what so-and-so had for breakfast or what the Kardashians are wearing, I feel like we're doing ourselves a disservice by even engaging and participating in that conversation because it's not uplifting us.
Okay.
So, and when I'm in a situation where people are gossiping, the perfect way to shift the conversation is to say a compliment about the person. So if I'm in a group and everybody's bad-mouthing a single person, I might say, oh, I really like her, and she has the nicest smile, and she's such a good neighbor. And you can't imagine how quickly that shifts the energy in the conversation, and it calls everybody to attention that I'm not going to participate in that.
Wow, I love that.
It's that easy. It's just saying something nice.
I love that. That reminds me, there's another one, and that is, I've heard people gossiping about someone. I happen to know their backstory, that they had really overcome some challenges, some personal challenges. So from kind of a superficial level, they were kind of struggling, and there's something to gossip about, but you consider the work they had gone through to get there. And I said, if you kind of knew what they had been through, you might think about that person about a little bit differently. That's probably a little more direct of doing what you've done, but that works too, I think.
Yeah, so, I think those are good examples of taking control, because boundaries is about I'm in control of how the words I speak, the company I keep, who comes into my space, and the energy that draws into my space. I get to choose.
Yeah. Okay, I love it. So we've kind of covered the bad, negative stuff. Let's get into the fun stuff. Let's talk about kind people and positive friends and family.
If someone's going to show up in a way that's supportive, I'm going to open my space to them. I mean, there's no reason that I can think of that I wouldn't have, that I wouldn't need a boundary necessarily for someone who's showing up in the way that meets my needs.
Okay.
I have a boundary and they're meeting that boundary, and then I'm saying, yes, please, come in.
Okay.
Like I'm opening my gate.
And same thing with grateful people. Grateful people are fun to hang out with because they see the bright side of everything.
Yeah, I mean, all of these are so easy. If I'm resonating with somebody and I'm appreciating what they have to say and I'm feeling uplifted, then I'm going to invite them into my space, cultivate those relationships, make sure that they're at the top of my list when I have free time to spend. Because if I have a choice of going to dinner with a friend who's fitting these green spots versus a friend who's in the red, it's really obvious.
Yeah, on Grateful People, last week I was in LA with a legal proceeding and it got out early, so I went by a retirement home in Boyle Heights, which is an area right outside of LA, and I went to visit a friend of mine, Erica Leon. She's 97 years old and she survived the Holocaust, if you can believe that. And every time I go to this retirement home, there's a central courtyard that's outside and it's green and the sunshine and everything. And I go in there, and every time I drop in to visit Erica, she's the only person outside, and all the other people just look miserable, quite honestly. Erica's always bright and sunshiny, and even though she's 97 and she's got her aches and pains, she just drips of gratitude for the sunshine and the this and the that. We ended up talking for hours as I was taking her wheelchair back into the facility. She goes, "Oh, look, stop, there's the moon." I hadn't even noticed the moon, It's the moon. But for her, she was just grateful for everything she saw, and she lost her entire family in the Holocaust, and yet she had this kind of way where she just repelled the negative thinking and let all the good stuff in. That's just how she conscientiously thinks. Kind of an example of that.
That's beautiful. I mean, that's just so beautiful and illustrative. And if we're surrounded by those people, we only have so many hours in our day. So if we handpick people who are like your friend, then it just brings us up, and we can be, that can be our community.
Yeah, she's always someone that I feel great being around her, so I drop in when I can to hang around with her. So society's positive influences, you have some examples of how that might go down?
Yeah, so there are things in our society that I embrace and love, and there are things in our society that I don't embrace and I don't love, and I get to choose. And when I notice something that's happening in my community, in my society, that works for me and feels like it's going to help me on my path that is a conscious choice, then I embrace it. And it's like if I nurture a seed, that seed grows. Mm-hmm. So if I put my energy where that positive thing is, then that's going to be nurtured and it's going to grow, and that's like really fun.
Thumbs up. Okay, and our last one, optimists. Seems obvious to me too. What do you think?
So I like hanging out with optimists, and I consider myself to be an optimist, and it's a great way to do life. I mean, it's just better. Like, what's not to like about going around with a glass that's half full?
Yeah, I love it. So healthy boundaries, basically, we get to make choices. We don't just have to react to whatever comes our way. If negative stuff is coming our way, we can just conscientiously make that decision to reject it. And also, when we see good stuff, we can say, hey, bring it on, let's party, let's enjoy all the good stuff. It seems like a pretty simple model, but it's astounding to me, even as adults. I mean, we've had some of the same friends for decades. And some people kind of get stuck in this mode, and they kind of fade out of at least my friendships, because who wants to be around this? And yet the positive people keep coming to the parties. You
start to attract the people that you want to attract when you're in that space. And I'll also point out that boundaries, it seems so obvious, but it's not obvious. Like, imagine if I grew up on an island where the rule was anytime I wanted to go visit anybody, I could walk in their front door without knocking. That would just be my normal. Well, if I'm raised with that kind of a boundary, then when I become an adult and I leave that island, I might go into a new neighborhood and I might just want to meet the neighbor and I might just walk into their front door without knocking.
Right.
Like, it wouldn't be obvious to me if I weren't conditioned with these certain boundaries. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just really reinforcing that we can condition ourselves to have these boundaries, even though it's not obvious at first.
Okay. Awesome. Healthy boundaries. Great episode. Thanks very much, Suzanne, for sharing these great tips for us.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you share this episode with people that you know, and also make sure you fill out the worksheet, because that helps really kind of make these principles come alive in your lives. Thanks for watching.